you may need to go talk to academic skills, and you shouldn't hesitate. They're a great resource for you to sort of say, I'm experiencing this kind of anxiety. I've done the post-mortem on my test. Here's what I think I can see in my performance is pure anxiety. What are some strategies that I can use? The post-mortem was really important too, to see how it was impacted.
The other thing is that a little bit of anxiety actually sharpens your brain power. That is what it is, the evolutionary purpose of anxiety, is to make you look around and be aware of what you're doing. A little bit.
Yeah.
It's when you get into the a lot.
Yeah, it's the yeah, you don't want to be overconfident, because then you don't, people who are overconfident don't study properly either. You know, and also, one of the other things that helped me is reframing it as excitement. That this is my chance to prove myself. And look at this, I can spew this stuff. Now I'm going to go into the test and I'm feeling hyped up, but that's excitement. I'm going to, you know, go through, I'm going to get all those easy questions done first. I know it sounds kind of silly, but how you frame it in your head and how you rationalize it is cognitive behavioral therapy, actually. And Jane's right, you know, you need to have a little bit of anxiety.
I would be concerned if I had a student that was totally not anxious about writing a test, because that would seem that they didn't care. I've been teaching for lots and lots of years.
Yeah.
I still feel that sense of nervous anticipation before every class, because otherwise I'm not on top of my game.
Yeah.
So that helps you. Don't ever be flat, but keep it in check and think positive about it.
Yeah, so use it to get you to energize. So you're hyper aroused, use it to energize. Any other hints I can give you?
Well, I find that in, like, for most of my courses, should I be studying more of what's happening in lectures as opposed to readings? Because I find that in lectures, my profs usually do things out.
They do. So profs will leave things out of lecture. We can't lecture on everything. We're lecturing on a selection. I tell students in my classes about 60% of the course material, or the essays, comes from directly from stuff I've lectured on, but another 40% is stuff that I didn't get to. This is where everything you read is fair game, like anything assigned. So I would spend some time developing a topics list as the first part of my study. What is fair game for this? What do I need to know? You need to consider everything in a course. Like, a lot of students will leave out whole course components. Like, if it's mandatory that you have read the discussion board, you read the discussion board. If you need to, like, if there are articles that have been assigned, you need to know generally what those articles are about. So I spend more time, instead of rewriting notes, which I don't find useful. I spend more time getting the topics list. I find that the absolute crucial part. It may even involve, in some courses, sitting down with the TA or making an appointment with the prof and asking some critical questions. I didn't cover study groups. How to develop a study group. If you guys are okay and you want to just hear, the study group is pretty critical to doing well at university, because remember I said I was really lazy? Your study group can make your life like 10 times easier. So for those of you who want to stay, I can explain. Your study group is critical.
Please.
A lot of people will set up study groups with their friends. And one of the things I realized quickly is that friends are great, but what I needed to do, because I wasn't a great student, okay, starting out, I was pretty pathetic. What I needed to do is learn from people who understood things better than me. So I was very deliberate. I always tried to study with people who were more motivated than me, because remember I'm lazy, so I need people who are motivated and who are doing better in the course than I am, or seeming to pick it up, or the ones who sit near the front and seem to be keeners. Study groups are not the same things as a social group. Get that out of your head. Students, you know, they think, oh, we'll get together with my friends and we'll study. It's great if they're as motivated and they care about the course and they want to do well, but if they're not, you need to change up. You need to get people who actually are doing better. Because if somebody's doing worse than you, you're going to be carrying them. The next thing I do is that I would explain, we would go through the SPEW method, and then we would decide only to bring to our study group the things that we were having trouble spewing, that we weren't clear on, or were difficult, or weren't coming through. Like, I remember this one thing. It was the scales of measurement for stats, nominal and ordinal and integral and ratio. It was yeah. So I remember just thinking, I can't remember these. I don't seem to understand. And my friend Trish, who's much more motivated and a better student than me, said, "Oh, you know how I remember that? NOR, nominal, ordinal, integral, ratio. They're black, the black scales." And it puts it in order, because nominal, names, and ordinal, names, and adds one more thing, order. And then interval, names, has order, and the spacing between the order or the increments is equal. And then ratio is that there's a true zero, and so it has all the categories, so it puts them in a nice order, and she had it all worked out. And I was like, that is brilliant. So I learned from, I bring the stuff that I'm having trouble with, and I bring that to my study group. How you run your study group is also very important. What I would do is say, all right, I'm going to ask some questions, and those are the questions I had trouble with. And I would say, put down everything, only what you're allowed on the exam. And what I would do is say, all right, what are the scales of measurement? And I would point, it would be your turn. And if you didn't know it, we would go to you. And if you only got 2 of them, then we would say, do you know? And we would go around until we had the full answer. And if somebody knew it off by heart, we would say, how do you remember it? What are some of your tricks? What are some of your techniques to remember that? What we're constantly doing is challenging each other. So I had, I could ask my 5 questions, and then it would be, now I have to put down my stuff, and it's your turn to ask us questions. Put everybody on the spot. It creates a little bit of anxiety because you're being put on the spot. You're using only the materials you have. Everybody's bringing the hard questions, and it's very focused and targeted. And what you're constantly listening for is, how does somebody else remember the stuff I'm having trouble with? See how it works? It really helps if they're a lot smarter than you. Now, this is really important. Do not study for more than 2 hours, or try not to study more than 2 hours, because what happens is everybody's blood sugar gets low, they get cranky. You need to build food into every study session. It gets unproductive. You shouldn't be bringing everything to the study group. You should be bringing only the stuff that is, you need other people to give you feedback on. And that's what everybody else should be doing. So study groups should be highly targeted and focused, not a free-for-all. Because what will happen is everybody will get too worn out, and then you start bitching about the prof, and before you know it, you're bitching about the whole course, and then and it just degenerates because it's not focused enough. The other thing I recommend is, if you do need to have a bitch session at the beginning, build it in and say, okay, everybody, let's just vent. I hate this course. Oh, she expects too much. Oh, all of those things. Get it out and say, okay, we're done our bitching. Now we get down to the study. Be very focused. So very organized. Don't waste people's time. I really found that my study group, in addition to the SPEW method and some of the other study techniques I developed, but the study group really was important, because my peers really showed me, how is it? It wasn't me that developed the SPEW method. Actually, it was a compilation of other people saying, you know what, if you can't produce it, you don't know it. And I was like, you're right, you're absolutely right. And it was slow clue in. Keep in mind, I was really dumb when I came to university. I failed out of high school, and I was here on academic probation for my first year. So I really had to learn about how to be a good student from scratch. I didn't have anything from high school that I could rely on. So this was very, very, and it was, what happened is that the people I studied with were never my best friends in in the way that I would go out to dinner with them or hang out with them for fun. We were really about studying. They were my colleagues in my class. It was like work friends. And then I had friends that I would go out, who I hung around with, that I would talk about music or whatever. But they were my study buddies, and they were in my program, and they cared more than I did about how we did. And I think that was a pretty important component. Any other?